Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. So the stock closed at about, I believe, $6.26 a share, up nearly 4% on volume of over 100,000 shares. Very respectable. I'll take it. Now, as I said before, we're going to be experimenting with some new things to try to be a bit more data-driven and a bit more structured. This isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to be a work in progress. Okay, let's pull up a slide. So what you're looking at is the 24-hour average pricing for a variety of, kind of like mission critical metrics that are really important for Stronghold Digital Mining and our operations. So when we look at PJM PN, right, that's sort of code for PJM Penelec. That's the zone of the grid where Scrubgrass is located. Over the past 24 hours, more or less, right, grid prices, I should say, have averaged $28.69. By contrast, PJM PL, which represents PJM PP&L, that's the zone of the PJM grid where I happen to live, and that's, of course, where Panther Creek is located. Their grid prices, on average, have been around $22.12. Now, BTCMW, that basically represents Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt hour. Over the past 24 hours, nearly $80, right? $79.60. And finally, the average Bitcoin price, the spot price of Bitcoin over the past 24 hours, has been around 27,372. So, okay, back to me. So I'm going to try to incorporate data points like this in these updates because I do think it can be quite useful, interesting, and sometimes even thought-provoking to sort of look at the numbers and get a real-world sense of, some of the variables that the company's dealing with. At least I find that somewhat interesting and useful. There are going to be some additional adjustments, some more data that's brought into these updates, but as I said, it's a very incremental process, so bear with me. With all of that said, we do have one piece of macroeconomic data that, of course, continues to some degree hang over the financial markets as a whole. And that is, of course, as I've referenced before, this whole issue within the United States of America, right? There's something called a debt ceiling, and there's some political wrangling, amongst legislators as to how best to handle that. So the outcome of that particular situation will probably, have an unduly large influence, so to speak, on financial markets as a whole. I think from the perspective of those of us who look at Bitcoin and say, hey, what could potentially be a positive catalyst for Bitcoin? In a way, I could see us being a winner either way to some extent. Let me explain. Let's say the debt ceiling is raised. The government can successfully, raise more debt, right? Increase the amount of debt in order to, pay bills and to, make sure that things continue to function. I do think that's kind of like a bullish thing for Bitcoin from the perspective that, and I want to word this very carefully, right? Because I do have tremendous respect for the incredibly difficult work that legislators put into trying to figure out the best path forward. It's not an easy job, and I have nothing but genuine respect for those who choose to enter that profession. It's a very tough job. But I think that the challenge is, right, that from a mathematical perspective, the more debt that continues to accumulate, there's a very high likelihood that some or all, of that debt might end up getting monetized in the future, if not perhaps in the present. So that could very well be a very bullish catalyst for Bitcoin. Now, let's assume for a moment that there's no deal, that somehow the debt ceiling as it exists remains in place. Well, that can, that's definitely going to jolt markets. At least I would expect that to be the case. And certainly Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mining ecosystem, right, can certainly see, a bit of this dislocation, right, in an event such as that. But I think longer term, that's actually also a very bullish thing for Bitcoin, simply because you would really see some cataclysmic, or at least potentially cataclysmic, challenges within certain sectors of the economy, including the banking sector. And as we sort of think about Bitcoin as a bank in cyberspace that's unstoppable and indestructible, again, if you have a traditional banking sector that's struggling, that could potentially bode well for Bitcoin. Okay, with all of that said, tomorrow is going to be a brand new month. I'm looking forward to it. Until then, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.